4-point rock backs, starting off tall kneeling and then making your way down into 4-point position, which will be with your hands roughly underneath the shoulder and the knee underneath the hip. Notice the ankles in the dorsiflex position. We're going to keep a nice line from the ear through the shoulder coming through the hip, and the idea here is to move through the hip whilst maintaining a neutral spine. So I'm just going to play this through for a few repetitions. Notice I'm going to come a little bit wider at my hips, and that's going to make a little bit more movement in the hips so I can sit down, free up a bit of space so I can sit down towards my heels whilst maintaining a neutral spine. So I'm pushing away from the floor, and I'm just going to stop it there. So this is a nice way to learn how to move through the hip, but also to determine what the hip width should be for your squat. So for myself, this is roughly where I should be. So I've abducted my hips and externally rotated them whilst making sure that my ankles turned out slightly as well. So if you came to a point, if your hips were too narrow, and let's draw a line through there. So you came down, you're drawing your glutes down towards your heels, and then you find that you can feel your lower back flexing, then that means that you might have to come a little bit wider at the hips. And so everyone's going to be different, and it's going to be a case of just playing around with the hip width to find what works best for yourself. So notice the chin, that the spine's maintaining nice neutral alignment. I've come a little bit wider at the hips now, and I'm just coming that little bit deeper down, and I'm just going to stop that there. So I'm making a point of really trying to drive away from the floor, at the same time keeping my shoulder blades under control and packed down. Try not to let the shoulders shrug up towards the ear, and keep the core engaged at the same time, playing it through to half speed. So you have to excuse this position, but it's important. So I'm going to stick my glutes in your face now. So this is just so you can have appreciation of how wide I'm coming at the hip. I'm just going to stop it there. So this is where my alignment is, with my hips abducted and externally rotated, and my heel position. I think I'm going to change that slightly, but this is where I'm more comfortable. So for yourselves, you might have to come maybe a little bit narrower down here, or sometimes you might have to come out just that little bit wider. So play around with the hip width and just see what works best for yourselves, and it's all about watching what the lower back does. So I'm just going to play this through for a few more repetitions. So this is where I'm just going to come heels a little bit wider. Keep the shoulder blades, because this is a really good stability exercise for the shoulders at the same time. Work it through the hips. Don't let the rib cage flare up.